Hello. So, I have leveled Brewmaster from 1 to 80, doing time walking dungeons and some various quests, um, Tollbard being some of those, the dailies in Tollbard. And this is about the most I've done with Monk Brewmaster specifically since trying to do mythics in season 1 of Shadowlands. So there's been some time in there. I think I leveled my monk for Dragonflight, but I don't think I did anything with her that I can recall. Yeah. So, um, this is the third tank I've leveled in War Within, and I would say that Monk falls between my Druid. I still feel my Druid, Guardian Druid, is the the best tank I've leveled so far. Their mastery is just so good. Um, so good. And ahead of Demon Hunter, at least the way I have my Demon Hunter set up, because I leveled my monk, got my monk to 80, and then switched over to my Demon Hunter to do some weekly things, daily things, and it did feel a bit squishy. Don't get me wrong, still had survivability, still can tank perfectly fine, just felt a bit squishy. So, I would say it falls right behind my Druid, but right ahead of my Demon Hunter. So, that being said, wanted to go over some things. There's some things I want to do at end game. So, I might play around with changing some things around. So, while I still had my thoughts from leveling, I wanted to kind of do an overview of the abilities and just briefly kind of look at the talents. Is what I'm gonna aim to do. Um, so starting with kind of the theory crafting part. So there's a couple things that I feel like you'd have to take um, in order to kind of make the way that I'm doing it work, and just in general would be good to have. So wasn't really worried about stats, was just kind of enjoying leveling. Um, was kind of trying to keep haste because haste increases energy regeneration, but outside of that, wasn't really worried about stats all that much. And then when I hit 80, went to the Warband Bank, had or have um, Hollow Falls gear from doing the dailies. So got a full set of gear, and my mastery ended up at 20%, which seems to be the amount you need because that definitely made a difference. I am just um, breezing through the dailies for um, the Hollow Fall dailies. So um, the ones in Hollowfall have been easier. The ones where you're in the Anubian area tend to be a bit harder, and those I'm just breezing through. Or they at least tend to be more elite, and that's where I was struggling a bit on other classes, other characters. So I would say try to aim for 20% mastery, which increases your dodge chance. So You're getting dodge from your agility, whether it says so or not. It always grants you dodge. And then, of course, you have your stagger. So between dodging and stagger, you have pretty good damage mitigation. So druids and monks are usually the last ones standing in raids when I've done raids as a healer over different expansions and patches and raid tiers. So, other than that, there's two abilities. That's what my talents look like. There's two abilities that I feel like are worth mentioning. So, the way that I set this up, as I said, this is the third tank that I have leveled. So, I set this up. I've kind of been refining the process each time. So I set my Guardian Druid up how I normally had my, or close to how I had my Blood Death Knight set up, because that had been the tank that I had was most familiar with, I'll say. Got the legendary cloak from Pandera on my Death Knight, so things like that. I was more familiar with kind of how blood works. So from there, kind of made some changes to Guardian, and then when I leveled my Demon Hunter, kind of refined it a bit more and kind of set things up similar. Kind of had a template by that point. And then now with my monk, I'm basically taking abilities to fill certain spots on the command bar, which is why I felt it was worth mentioning that. So, typically what I've been doing, the first two spots are AoE. So the first spot will be a filler ability, or an ability that can be used as a filler ability, basically. And then the second one will be usually an AoE with a cooldown. I think is probably the best way to describe it. It's usually you're more involved. So I have Spinning Crane Kick and Keg Smash. And then the next spot will be a self-heal, which is Expel Harm for Monk. And then I'll have two melee abilities. So that's Blackout Kick and Rising Sun Kick. And then, if possible, I'll have most tanks have at least one spell ability. So that would be Breath of Fire. And then, so far, every tank I've leveled has had an ability that has two charges. So, Frenzied Regeneration for Druid, Demon Spikes for Demon Hunter, and Purifying Brew for Brewmaster Monk. And then after that, on my Druid, with it being a Kultiran, it has a racial that's stunned. So I put it on in the 8 slot, which is where I've been putting my slows on my DPS characters. And then on my Demon Hunter, to give you an example of how I've kind of been refining this, I put Chaos Nova here, which is an AoE stun. So for Monk, I went ahead and put Leg Sweep here, which isn't as good as Chaos Nova, but it definitely will help. And then for two of the positions, I've been trying to get a kind of a short-term damage, healing, cooldown, and then some sort of shield. And then I always end up with some sort of a longer cooldown damage mitigation ability. So, and then with Monk, I have the addition of the racial is a single target stun. So, I have an extra ability, and that is pretty much, as I said, how I've been setting up everything. So, like with Spinning Crane Kick, I have Swipe for my Druid. Um, for for the next ability, I'll have Immolation Aura for my Demon Hunter, things like that. So that seems to be working rather well. So that being said, the two things that I feel like are worth mentioning, you have Salbin's Strength. When you use Cake Smash, the remaining cooldown of Breath of Fire is reset. So that was a big thing, was Cake Smash and then Breath of Fire. That's anytime I've ever played Brewmaster or looked at Brewmaster, that's always kind of been a thing. So it's kind of like Flame Shock and Lava Burst for Elemental Shaman. Kind of the Brewmaster equivalent of that. So that is very good, I thought, because you're always, Cake Smash has a fairly short cooldown. By the time you run through a rotation, you'll be a second or two away from Cake Smash coming off cooldown. So then you can go right into using Breath of Fire and finish your running through your rotation. The other thing worth mentioning is, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Every 10 seconds, your next Vivify becomes instant, and its healing is increased by 20%. This effect also reduces the energy cost of Vivify by 75%. So, as I said, Expel Harm is kind of your self-heal. It doesn't work well. It's dependent on healing spheres, which was a big thing. Chi and healing spheres and everything have been kind of something they played around with Monk, Brewmaster, Mistweaver, things like that. So you have two abilities. One summons a fear when you take damage, and one basically summons one when you deal damage. And Expel Harm will take these as charges. They will actually spawn. They will look like this golden orange kind of appearance here. And if you walk into them, kind of like your soul fragments, you'll use them, or you can use them with Expel Harm. So the more charges you have, the better this works. If you have one or two charges, this works perfectly fine. If not, you're going to need to use Vivify to keep your health up. The other thing that is worth mentioning is your rotation pretty well works. Pretty much as you run through everything kind of, the cooldowns all line up pretty well. So the basic rotation would be Spinning Crane Kick, Cake Smash, Breath of Fire, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, and then, Expel Harm if need be, or Purifying Brew, and then basically just rinse and repeat. So the problem you may notice here, so like I said, Cake Smash is a few seconds off cooldown, so I run through Breath of Fire. But depending on, say, Rising Sun Kick is still on cooldown, and you can't really wait that long in combat. That is a fair amount of damage lost, I feel like. So there's a healing sphere there. As you see, I have one charge on Expel Harm. So that is kind of the weird thing. You kind of have to skip Rising Sun Kick the second time around is what I find, and either use Blackout Kick or just wait and just, after you use Breath of Fire, just go back and use Spinning Crane Kick again, Cake Smash, which takes Breath of Fire off cooldown, and then you can just kind of run through it again. That has been I won't go as far as to say it's been annoying, but it definitely has been noticeable. So, unfortunately, Rising Sun Kick is one of your better cooldowns or your better damage abilities. So, yeah. Otherwise, as far as the talents go, your Brewmaster talent, your left side is mostly damage abilities, and your right side is mostly stagger passives. What I didn't take is a passive for something else, like Fortifying Brew, Determination, increases stagger effectiveness while active. I don't really use it, it's more just kind of an emergency ability, so this really doesn't benefit me much. Things like that, you kind of had to pick and choose. So you get Cake Smash as your first ability, and then Purifying Brew, Shuffle, which kind of increases the effectiveness of your stagger. So like I said here, if we go down the left side, so when you blackout kick, your stagger is reduced by almost 65,000. As I said, Gift of the Ox, so you summon a healing sphere when you take damage. Increases the duration of your next Cake Smash by 10%, stacking up to 4 times. Celestial Brew, which absorbs damage. Purifying Stagger damage increases absorption by up to 200%. Breath of Fire. Cake Smash resets the cooldown of Breath of Fire. If you're using Breath of Fire, your Breath of Fire 2 additional times, dealing fire damage. See, things like this I might be able to swap around for something else. Increased up to 100% based on the level of stagger. And then kind of in the middle you get into more utility. So if we go down the right side here, so Shuffle. Increases the effectiveness of your stagger. Shuffle is granted by attacking enemies with your Cake Smash, Blackout Kick, or Spinning Crane Kick. Then of course Healing Sphere, so Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, have a chance to summon a Healing Sphere. Purify 5% of your staggered. Each time you gain 3 seconds of shuffle duration. Special Delivery. Rushing Jade Wind for a while now. Used to replace Spinning Crane Kick. It, for a while now, has not. It's been its own separate ability, which is good and bad, I feel like. I kind of thought Special Delivery would work kind of like Barb's does for Guardian Druid, which is when you activate Bark Skin, it reflects damage back to the attacker. Special Delivery, when you use your brews, so you have 3, you have Purifying Brew, Celestial Brew, and Fortifying Brew. You toss the cake high up in the air and deal AoE damage when it lands, which seemed good. This has been about in the middle on recount. And then Rising Sun Kick grants a stack of Elusive Brawler, which is your mastery, if I remember correctly. Where is my mastery? Oh, hello. It helps if you look in the right where... Oh, there we go. Yeah, elusive brawler. So it just increases your dodge chance until you dodge again. So, you have a 10% chance not to reset your elusive brawler stack after a successful dodge. When you consume a healing sphere or cast Expel Harm, your current stagger amount is lowered by 5%. Gain up to 15% mastery based on your current level of stagger. Blackout Kick deals an additional 5% damage. Blackout Kick critical strikes grant an additional 1 stack of elusive brawler. Blackout Kick damage increased by 20% and it strikes an additional 2 targets. Each time you dodge or an enemy misses you, your next Tiger Palm or Spinning Crane Kick deals 100% increased damage. So, you kind of see what I was going for here. Some things worth mentioning. So, I took Exploding Keg to kind of fill that spot of a kind of a short-term cooldown ability that does damage. Doesn't heal. My Druid has, I believe it's Druid of the Claw, which does damage and heals. And my Demon Hunter has Fiery Brand, which you can take some, I believe it has a healing effect or a leech effect to it, I believe. Definitely, you can take a talent which makes it an AoE at the very least. Yeah, there just were not a lot of options for Monk. I was kind of surprised by that. So this has been like one of the top DPS abilities according to Recount when I've done dungeons. So I could see maybe trying to swap this out for Rushing Jade when it might work a bit better. The main thing I don't like about it is it's a target on location ability, which does make it a bit clunky to use. I kind of try to use Leg Sweep and then try to use it so I have that few seconds to line everything up. The other thing is I don't actually have Tiger Palm anymore because I replaced it with a passive. Normally it does a little bit of damage and will reduce the cooldown of your bruise by 1 second. Instead, I went ahead and took a passive because I wasn't using it and I really had no room for it. So, pressing the advantage, your main hand auto attacks reduces cooldown of your bruise by 0.5 seconds, which is what Tiger Palm normally would do. And block your target's chi, dealing additional nature damage and increasing your damage dealt by 1% for 20 seconds upon reaching 10 stacks. Your next cast of Rising Sun Kick or Cake Smash consumes all charges to strike again and 100% effectiveness. This bonus attack can trigger effects on behalf of Tiger Palm at reduced effectiveness. So, the whole bonus attack thing, there's a few different abilities that use this. I had Call to Arms, which was supposed to summon the Black Ox. The chance was so low, I just went ahead and took an ability that summons an effigy. I didn't bother with the statue. I don't need the statue. It's just kind of clunky to use. So just to have something as kind of a cooldown, I went ahead and just took an ability that gives me an effigy, which I think is perfectly fine. And Chi Surge was supposed to work with pressing the advantage and do damage if you trigger a bonus attack. I don't fully understand what exactly triggers a bonus attack, if it's just like a critical strike, chance kind of a thing, or what, but I had this for a while, just didn't really seem to do very much, so I think I put it into Zen Meditation, which will reduce damage as long as you don't get struck by a melee attack. So there's a few instances where I can see this being helpful, so I just went ahead and took it. I've never used it. Used to be baseline, never used it, but having played around with my druid and my demon hunter a bit more before um, doing anything with monk, um, I may be more inclined to use this if I have it. So I just went ahead and took it. There wasn't really anything else that interested me. And then as far as the monk talents, I mean, you can kind of see those for yourself. Just mainly took utility, so paralysis. Had to take Tiger Lust to get bounding, agility, increases healing. We went over that one. That Vivacious, Vivication. I'm gonna say something like that. Chi Wave is a passive now. It's been a passive for a while now, at least an expansion or two. Chi Burst still works exactly the same way, as far as I recall, as far as I can remember. I kind of like doing this to Chi Wave because it never really did a whole lot of damage, but it was a kind of a nice thing to have, just as something extra to use in combat. So works perfectly fine. You're with your Rising Sun kick or Vivify. Does healing and damage, which is nice. That's typically why you take it. They really tried to make that a thing with monks back when they first came out. Took Spear Hand Strike just to have a spell interrupt. Took Detox to have something to remove poisons and disease effects. Rising Sun Kick you get by default. Took the Quality of Life talent for that, so it deals 70% increased damage. Spinning Current Kick deals 10% additional damage. While out of combat, your movement speed is increased by 15%. Provoke. Targets move towards you 50% faster. So I was actually kind of interested in this, and it doesn't seem to. It works about half the time depending on the target. Expel harms, healing is increased by 5%. Critical strike chance increased by 15. Granting you magic absorb shield for 1% of your maximum health every 3 seconds in combat. I've taken diffuse magic before. I forget to use it half the time, and the cooldown and everything. So, yeah, a passive's fine for something like this. I'd rather have a passive, so I don't have to worry about trying to use it. Then you have a choice for expel harm. Either its healing is increased based on your missing health, or the critical strike is increased by 50%. I've had mixed results with abilities that enhance your critical strike when they do something. So went with the missing health. I feel like would have more of an effect. May not heal as much, but it would have more of an effect than waiting for a critical strike chance. So if you're going to do something like this and rely on an ability like this, you almost need to stack your critical strike. And then I went ahead and took Transcendence, which I do and don't use. I mostly use it in PvP, that's it. But wasn't really anything else, again, that interested me. So with every talent, every class that has, just their baseline talents like this, their general talents, you almost end up taking something that you kind of just have to move down the tree. So took that, snares targets, took fortifying brew, took the cooldown reduction for fortifying brew, which I feel is better, increases maximum health. Your damage taken is reduced. I mean, they're good, but I'd rather have the reduced cooldown so I can use it when I choose to. Yeah, increases the range of leg sweep by 4 yards. Increases your dodge chance. I've had dampen harm quite a bit before, and it works really well. It just, since dodge is more kind of, this has more synergy, I feel like, with Brewmaster, with the mastery and everything. So that seems to be working perfectly fine. And let me see here. Transcendence immediately heals you for 10% of your maximum health. So that would be really good in PvP. You know, if you have the flag or an orb or something, when I use these abilities, usually to get away from a rogue or something, you do get away. You do have a few seconds, but you know, then your health is, depending on how geared and how good they are at their class, you may or may not be, you know, at half health. So this would at least help. And then Flow of Cheat, which I thought was interesting because it does different things depending on what level your health is at. So above 90% health, your movement speed is increased by 5% and stacks with other abilities, effects, similar effects. Between 90 and 35, damage taken is reduced, and below 35, healing received is increased. So all really good, honestly. And again, I don't have to think about what I'm doing. When a hit deals more than 12% of your maximum health, reduce all damage you take by 20% for 4 seconds. This effect cannot occur more than once every 30 seconds. Touch of Death increases your damage by 5% for 30 seconds after being cast, and its cooldown is reduced by 90 seconds. So that is the best, I would say, finisher in the game because it basically does damage equal to your health. So you can actually use Fortifying Brew, increase your health, and then use Touch of Death, as long as the target is equal in health with you. Definitely a good way to speed through dungeons, if at all possible. Reduces the cooldown of paralysis and cooldown of leg sweep, so mostly took it for leg sweep. While your celestial is active, so that would be the Black Ox. You cannot be slowed below 90% normal movement speed. So again, PvP, some bosses will have mechanics, things, there will be something on the ground that might slow you, so that seemed worthwhile. And yeah, so as far as the hero talents went with Mastery, Master of Harmony, I've been mostly just taking the one that's more passive based, that just kind of enhances the abilities that I've already been using. I'm not really theory crafting this too much, because I suspect they're going to turn around and change a lot of this in the next expansion anyway. So yeah, so there you go. There was a look at Brewmaster Monk, and it seemed appropriate to do this since the 11.5.7 patch came out this week, so it kind of caps off the 11.5 patch. And as I said, there's a few endgame things I want to do. So, like I need to finish the Hollow Fall, the Renowned on that. And I've I've been doing, I did the Undermine raid, because I'm going to get some of the gear. I kind of like the one set, which looks very much like Dragon Ball Z. Where is it here? Yeah, there we go. I mean, the hair has got to be intentional there. Don't particularly care for the dragon face, but yeah, I like everything else. So I'm gonna try to get the LFR version of that. The mythic version looks good. The heroic version, the normal version. I kind of do and don't like. Again, just the head just doesn't. Not a big fan of that. But I do like the orange, and there's not a lot of orange sets in the game, so. Yeah, so there you go.